Right, welcome back to the FNZ Football Show. Once again, we're here on a Monday night to talk about all the latest football news. And with me tonight, I've got the boys. So we've got a few debuts tonight, so please remain patient. Let's start with Ross. Ross, hello, mate. How are you?
Hey, mate. How you doing?
Yeah, good. You looking forward to it tonight?
Yeah. Never done it before, so that's the first time. So very excited.
Good. We've got a few topics that I know you're willing to get into and look forward to tonight. So,
Yeah,
one of your mates, Dom, is on tonight. Dom, how are you doing, mate?
Very well, you?
Yeah, not too bad. Got a bit of a delay there, mate, but I'm hoping that will clear up in the next few minutes, especially before we go on to Liverpool topics. And obviously, we've got Mark back. Mark, how are you doing, mate?
I'm good, mate. I don't know if you can see me. I think mine's frozen.
Yeah, I can see you, mate. You're absolutely fine.
I see you.
That's all right.
Moving on. You should be absolutely fine, buddy. So, yeah, it's been I don't know, the word's probably turbulent week in terms of football news this week, and I just can't get my head around some of the stuff that I'm hearing. But, we've tried to pick up a few topics that we can talk about tonight, and I think we should rewind and look at one of the stories we've got this week. Right, so the first story tonight, Liverpool receive a record £175 million in payouts in prize money and TV earnings for their Premier League win. However, it looks as though that they're going to have to share out those winnings after agreement to spread the COVID-19 related rebates to broadcasters across future seasons. So, I mean, if you're a Liverpool fan right now, you're crying out for more signings. They've been linked with Thiago Alcantara, obviously from Bayern Munich. It looks like that one's going to get over the line. But in terms of where Liverpool are as a club at the moment, do they think they need to invest before next season? Let's start with you, Ross.
I mean, obviously, looking at how the season went, I think we were quite consistent, and the sort of squad depth was quite good. But I think we got quite lucky with injuries, especially with the front three. And the season before that, to be honest. So I think our luck may run out if we continue the way we're going. And I do think there are some areas in the squad that do need some investment. Luckily enough, we've already sorted out the left back position. And looking like we're going to get Thiago, which will be a great signing. I mean, I've been crying out for a creative midfielder for the last few years, even though Alexander-Arnold's done such a good job along with Robinson. But I think Thiago is really the guy that we need, and hopefully we will, pay that money for him. But obviously, I don't know how our club is run. There's a lot of sort of things to be paid for, being that the revenue is quite, low with no ticket sales at the moment. And I trust in the owners really to do what they think is best for the club going forward. So hopefully some of that money will be used to buy players, but at the same time, I can't expect all of it to be used to buy players as, like I said, there must be other things that they need to put that money aside for.
Dom, in terms of players coming in, does that mean players are going to have to go out for Liverpool? I think we lost him, boys. He's gone.
Yeah, it's quite a delay, isn't there?
Yeah, he's definitely gone. Right, we're going to have to wait for him to come back tonight. Anyway, look, boys, let's quickly get back onto it. Mark, let's ask you that question, mate. If Liverpool bring players in, do they have to let players go? I mean, there's a lot of competition in that squad, isn't there?
There's a lot of clearing out they need to do, in all honesty. You look at the likes of Origi, Shaqiri, Lovren, you think, are they
Lovren's really gone. Lovren's gone already.
Has he gone, has he?
Yeah. He went to Zenit for 11.75 million or something, about 11 million it was.
Yeah, you look at them sorts of players, you think they're not title winning players, really. Origi had the flukiest year of his career the year before. He's done nothing last year. It's pretty much, it shows how much he's been used. Klopp wouldn't even put him on. That's how much he trusted him. Just happened to fluke 3 of the biggest goals in his career, or whatever it was. He's nothing special. You want to get rid of him. Let's take him to that next level. This year was a good year, but they've got to build. They've got to build on it. Like, great teams, good teams win a title once. Great teams retain it. And Thiago's that level of signing that you think, yep, that's serious intent. But there's a lot that they need to to do before they get to that stage.
So Ross, as a Liverpool fan, obviously the club, they've won the Premier League. They obviously need to strengthen. That's how you can, consistently win titles. I mean, what do you do in terms of, your owner's not a billionaire owner. He's not somebody who's not going to splash cash all over the place. What can Liverpool do to improve their ranks going into next season?
I mean, like I said, I'm saying to other Liverpool fans, we don't have the kind of money that Man City have, Chelsea have, or even Manchester United, and we can't really sort of compare ourselves to them because, to be fair, what Klopp and the backroom staff have done has been remarkable in terms of our recruitment. I mean, people were laughing at us when we signed Mane, when we signed Robertson. No one even heard of Firmino when we signed him. Salah's another one people laughed, saying he's a Chelsea flop. And we've sort of proved the doubt was wrong, really, if you have to think about it, because we've made sort of good players into world-class players and their value has just skyrocketed. Yeah. So in terms of going forward, I mean, into next season with this pandemic going on, like I said, I don't think it's fair to put this kind of pressure on the owners to sort of spend big because I think the starting 11 is kind of there. I think it's a strengthening particular positions that need that bit more depth, bit more competition. And the bit that worries me the most is the front three. I think we relied on them too heavily. And if one was to get injured, which you've seen at certain parts of last season, we did struggle quite a lot. So I think a few players need to go out for us to bring some in. There's a few that I do think are not needed so much, but we've got a few academy players coming through, like Curtis Jones. We've got Williams at right back, so
Brewster up front.
Arnold. So I think all in all, I think it's a mixture of everything. I don't want us to go out and just spend big, and when it's not needed, I think just bring in the right players for the right money. Yeah.
So Dom's rejoined us. Dom, mate, if you had to bring in any player as a Liverpool fan right now, who would it be?
Right now, I'd love an extra winger, especially if Shaqiri goes, because obviously we need to strengthen in depth. Centre mid would be nice as well. So obviously we're looking at Thiago as an option, but whether that goes through is another question. And then maybe one more centre back, just as cover, because obviously we've got Matip, but other than that, we've only really got youngsters. They're not really experienced enough at the moment. I think a couple of them may have to go on loan. Maybe 2-3 more, I'd say.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. In terms of where we see Liverpool then, do you think they can retain the title, or do we think that other clubs such as Chelsea, Man City might be too strong next season? Let's go with you, Mark, on that one.
City are coming back with a vengeance. They ain't retaining it.
Do you reckon? Why is that?
Yeah.
Is that because of that statue that they've erected outside of
yeah. Well, for David Silva, I think that's quite justified, really.
Go on, justify it for me, because I think, as a fan I'm not a fan of Man City or anything, but as a fan of football, I think it's hard to appreciate modern icons. Would you agree?
That's because he's still playing. If he'd retired 10 years ago and done the same thing, won 4 Premier League titles, he's won 14 trophies wins at Man City. I looked compared to Thierry Henry, who was at Arsenal, but obviously an icon of the Premier League as well as at Arsenal. He only won 6 trophies while he was there. David Silva's probably had as bigger impact over a longer period as Henry did in this short time at Arsenal. So, it's for clubs to decide, isn't it, what you class as a legend. Yeah. It's better than Fulham putting Michael Jackson outside their stadium. So it could be a lot worse.
Right. Talk about players that make an impact and those who certainly haven't done. Let's get on to our next topic. So there's a big talking point amongst everyone at the moment, and it's obviously Gareth Bale. Gareth Bale's not been playing for Manchester City, for Real Madrid. And Mesut Ozil just seems to be doing the same at Arsenal. They just seem to be collecting their wages and making a run for it. Dom, let's start with you on this one, mate. Should they both stay or should they go? Where's he gone? We've lost him. We've lost him. How unreliable. Right, we're going to have to get back to him. Ross, should they stay or should they go, mate?
I mean, personally, as a sort of big football fan, and if I was to be a footballer myself, I'd like to think, you only have one career, and it's quite a short career, to be honest. And I want to look back at my career knowing that I played my best football. I played as much as possible. I understand from a money point of view, people were saying that they have to look after their families, things like that. But I mean, on that kind of money, do you really need 600k a week to look after your family? I just think it's absolute madness. If you really cared about football that much, I think Bale and Ozil would have left a year or two ago already. Obviously, it's a two-way street, and there's something going on, with the managers and with other staff. But at the same time, from a fan's point of view, it's looking like they're just money grabbers, and they just want to sit around, grab their paycheck. And Bale looks like he just wants to play golf, and that's it. So personally, like I said, I think if they want to have a legacy as a footballer, they would have moved on already. And I think it's long overdue that they move. But from the sounds of it, from both of them, they've both come out saying they don't want to go, which is telling me, again, they really don't care about playing minutes on the field. They just want to pick up their money and enjoy life.
I mean, there seems to be a huge split of opinion on this, but they've both come out saying they won't be leaving this summer. They'll only leave when their contracts end. Domestically, both players have achieved everything in terms of, world-class status. They've won the Champions League between them, Real Madrid. Obviously, you could argue that Ozil lost the passion for football when he left Real Madrid and joined Arsenal. So it didn't affect how he played as a player. I mean, look at Gareth Bale. The last time he made an impact, you would argue, was against Liverpool in the Champions League final. I mean, he was absolutely unplayable in that game. Sometimes it can be a manager's decision that makes these players fall out of love with football. I'll probably have to argue with them that, money has probably become a legacy, but that actually make them play, make up their mind. Do they want to just sit on the bench? I mean, if I was getting paid 600 grand a week to not do anything, then yes, I'll take it.
It's a catch-22 though, isn't it? If they're not getting picked to play, what can they do? No, the clubs have shot themselves in the foot by, okay, their performances have probably warranted them being on a good wage, but if the manager's not picking them and they are on such high money that they can't get rid of them, what can the player do? Player's just going to have to sit there and take the money. Like Bale's just not getting picked, is he? He's on the bench the whole time. It's up to it's not his fault. Well, it might be his fault. He's felt it was Zidane, but at the moment, there's not a lot he can do. No one can really afford him. Zidane's not playing him, so what does he do?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like some clubs just dig themselves a hole there. I think Manchester United did it with Sanchez, didn't they? That was big wages, and he was an absolute disaster, really. So I do think some clubs are shooting themselves in the foot when they're putting these guys on such big wages. I mean, whoever's agent it was for Bale did a good job getting him on 600k a week. I mean, I know Bale was world class at the time, but I don't see where these kind of wages are coming from. And like you said, I do agree that if they're not getting picked, what do you do? But at the same time, do you use your own initiative and go, you know what, I want to play, I'm just going to get out of here? I can see both sides of the coin, whether you stay or you don't. I can see both points of view. But if I was a footballer, I would be like, you know what, I've stayed long enough now, and it seems like I'm never going to get played. It's time to move on, because they're not young anymore, are they? I mean, Bale's like 31, Ozil was like 32. They're coming to the end of their careers, and it's not like they're not good. They're still got you don't just turn into a bad player overnight, do you? So personally, from my point of view, I'd move on. But at the same time, if they've got a contract and they're getting that kind of money, then why would you leave?
Yeah, do you think clubs? I mean, I saw today James Ward-Prowse signed a 5-year contract extension, and I'm not saying that those clubs are going to be paying out the same amount of wages, but if you look at these long contracts, you're just handing money to these players. And I mean, if we compare it to last week, we saw Willian, bag a 220k contract at Arsenal. The money that is going into these players, 220k a week just for Willian is a joke, but £600,000 a week. £250,000 a week, you name it, anything over bloody 20,000 a week. It's a lot of money, but these players are actually raking at home. We're talking $1 million every 2 weeks. They're just rolling in it. I mean, when is it going to end? I mean, we've seen salary caps come in at lower levels. Is that ever going to happen at the top of the game?
No, it's too much money. It's too much money in the game now for it to happen. It won't happen. It's just League One and League Two being a bit tin potters. Some of the teams are in that league, so that's just me being an Ipswich fan there.
I think we've crossed the line where I don't think they can come back from it, and that's the sad. I think money's took over. I don't think there's any way of it coming back. Obviously, this pandemic has kind of opened people's eyes a bit to what could actually happen, but I still don't think it's going to stop them, especially the big clubs. But yeah, I agree. I can't see it ever happening, and I think it's getting out of control a little bit. Where I think player power is just there now. Where years ago, for example, Ferguson, if he didn't like you, he'd be rid of you in a second. You know, it was always about the manager in the club, where the players had to abide by their rules. And since agents have come into it, agents have just really blown the whole thing into, you know, proportion where they're like, right, if you want my player, you got to give me this amount of money, and I want him to be on big money as well. And now the power's with the players, and the manager can't really do anything about it.
Yeah, completely agree. Right, let's take a quick break. Have a look at this one.
Listen up, lads. Are you madly searching for the next best podcast? Join Ash, Armchair, Tux and Bex for the FNZ 90+3 podcast as they speak to former professionals about their careers in football. Available to watch on YouTube or listen to on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Join the lads every Sunday from 8 p.m.
Yeah, so last one we had live was last night, wasn't it, Mark? You went on that one, but we had Liam Ridgewell, didn't we, this week? Centre-back, used to play for likes of Birmingham, West Brom, Aston Villa. Yeah. Great bloke. Never knew he was a QPR fan until I spoke to him, but he spoke highly of the Ars. But
did you ask about when he wiped his arse with £50 notes?
Yeah, we did. We did talk about that. He said though that it wasn't. It was a stunt between mates that just got out of hand. Someone got hold of the picture and it just went south from there. So he seemed like a genuine bloke. So I don't expect that he's wiping his ass at 20 times living. But there you go.
I'm sure he's got plenty of stories. It's probably well worth a watch. I recommend it.
Definitely. So if you haven't watched that, guys, you know, Sundays 8 p.m. on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube. You can watch our latest FNZ 90+3 podcasts. And yeah, keep up to date with it. So let's have a look at the big news for this week. Right, so the big news this week, Barcelona boys, what's going on? I mean, Jesus Christ. Yeah, where do you start? Barcelona obviously thrashed 8-2 by Bayern Munich in the quarterfinals of the Champions League and have sacked Quique Setién after only 8 months at the club. Barcelona continue their awful trend of going out of the Champions League in humiliating fashion. So, first point tonight, boys. Let's start with you, Mark, on this one. Surely Barcelona's dominance has now come to an end after throwing away the league to Real Madrid and then going out of the Champions League to Bayern Munich in embarrassing fashion. Where did it all go wrong, do you think?
It's been going wrong for a while. It's just a slow, sad sort of decline of a real footballing institution, really. You look at it, yes, Valverde was winning titles, but football wasn't great. Setién, they got him in. I thought he'd be a good manager, to be honest. I saw him absolutely batter Barcelona when he was Real Betis manager. And I thought, yeah, maybe he's the guy to bring it back. But I think it runs deeper than the manager. What Barcelona have been doing for years is just been completely against what Johan Cruyff and Pep Guardiola instilled with their La Masia academy. It's just, I'll ask you a question, Ash. Apart from Ansu Fati, when was the last La Masia graduate who significantly came through the club, sort of made an impact to Barcelona?
That's a good point. I don't know.
There you go. Like the signings they've been making, you know, I would hazard a guess if Pep Guardiola was there, Martin Braithwaite wouldn't have ever stepped foot in the new camp as a home player. You know, even this summer they've sold Arta to Juventus. You know, what is he? 23 years old, and they've got 30-year-old Pjanic in. Like, okay, Pjanic is a good player. Maybe if you got him 5 years ago, that's a good signing. But now it's just what I don't get it. And the Griezmann deal, I don't get that. 28 years old and for 120 million, whatever it was. It's just not the Barcelona I know. And something really needs to change at that club. And it runs deeper than those on the pitch and the man in the dugout. And I think they've got elections in 2021. Koeman's the man who's been linked for taking over, but he's got a tough job in his hand in the meantime. But until Bartomeu's gone as the president, it's not going to change for a long time, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you can look at it one way, but although Barcelona's season's been a disaster, Ross, at 33 years old, Lionel Messi still performed at world-class standard by scoring 31 goals, provided 26 assists in 44 games across all competitions. Does this prove how reliant Barcelona are on him?
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's an easy answer. I think they've been reliant on him for quite a few years now. Like I said, I think Barcelona have really gone down a similar route to Man United have the past few years, really, where they used to bring through these academy players, and just like Man United did, and that's what they built the club on. And they had a philosophy really on how they played, where this past few years they've just been making these crazy signings for big money, like Griezmann. Coutinho. I'm a Liverpool fan. I was gutted that he left, but for the amount of money we got for him and the players we got in his place with Alisson and Van Dijk, that was some of the best business I've ever seen in football. And obviously that ended up an absolute disaster, really. I don't know what happened there with Barcelona Coutinho. Obviously he came back to haunt them Friday night with a few goals. So yeah, I think with Messi, I do think they've become reliant on him too much, and I personally think it's time for them to move on and for them to start a clean slate, stop being so reliant on him, and let the rest of the squad step up, really, because I do think they keep relying on him to, you know, get him out of trouble all the time. And you know, he's 33 years old now. You know, he's been good with Inter over the years, and there's only so much he can do in a game. And some people say he gave up in that game against Bayern Munich, but what can you do when your defence is leaking 4 goals in 30 minutes? I mean, I don't see how any other player would have reacted any differently. I think they've really hit rock bottom, and I do think with Messi leaving, getting a new manager in, and just sorting out the whole recruitment, I think it's going to take a few years for them to recover, just like with Man United at the moment. They've been trying to recover, and it's took them so long to do that. And they're showing some progress now, and it's shown it can work, but you can't just throw money at it because it's shown to be a failure. And I do think some of the signings they've made have been a disaster for them.
Yeah, I mean, I'd agree. I'd have to agree. If you look at the likes of Ronaldo leaving Real Madrid, obviously Real Madrid have got that bounce back ability where they've been able to perform, maybe not on the Champions League stage, but they've obviously gone, they've picked Barcelona anyway this season. In terms of Messi, you know, questions are now, you know, arising. Mark, there's been rumours yet to be confirmed by a reliable source that Lionel Messi has told Barcelona that he desires to leave the club this summer. I mean, it's got a very short window to leave, I would imagine, but surely by letting Messi go, this will empower the squad to step up to the plate. Would you agree?
No, because they're not good enough. There's a stat that I looked at with my mate. He's a Barcelona fan. Without Messi's goals and assists this season, they would have finished 12th. That says a lot. There's a lot of players some that I've mentioned, who are just there. I don't know why they're there. Rakitic hasn't been a great player for them in recent years. Vidal, don't get that signing at the time. There's a lot of players there who are either past their best or simply aren't good enough. Messi's obviously come out and said he's not happy, but I think that's just a final plea from them, because without Messi, there isn't really a Barcelona at the minute. He is that club, and whatever you say about him, whether it's he's stayed there too long or he hasn't challenged himself elsewhere, he's done a lot. He's done a lot there, more than many other players would do in their whole career.
Well, it's fair to say in the last 16, 17 years, Lionel Messi has made Barcelona an unstoppable force in the world of football. Him as a player himself deserves every accolade he gets. A player deserving of a statue, Mark, as we were talking about earlier, if he was to leave the club, or even now they're going to erect a statue. The guy's a god. Yeah, you can't deny it. But what are Barcelona going to do to improve, Ross?
I really do think that with what Messi's done, he's done everything he could possibly do for Barcelona. He's been at the sort of pinnacle of their success. Does he want to stick around for a rebuild? He's 33. He's at a stage of his career where I don't personally think he's going to want to stick around for a rebuild. I think he knows this sort of era at Barcelona has come to an end. And like I said, they haven't really brought any players through to replace, the players they had before that, like Iniesta, like Eto'o, like Henry, Ronaldinho. I think they have just trotted along, and now they've been caught out. And I think Bayern Munich really showed the sort of quality they have and how far behind Barcelona are now. Like I said, from a point of view of what Messi's done, I think he has the right to ask to leave now. I don't think he owes them anything. I think Barcelona owe him a lot for what he's done, for sticking around for so long. But now after that Friday night, I've never ever seen Barcelona get dominated like that in my entire life that I've been watching football, and that's scary. It's scary to see any team getting beaten 8-2, but a team of Barcelona's pedigree, that was just possibly the most humiliating Champions League game I've ever seen. And if you look at the previous year against Liverpool, and then the previous year that against Roma, it's not the first time it's happened. They seem to come unstuck at this stage. And it's becoming quite embarrassing for them now. And I do think their fans are fed up.
Yeah, and obviously they got rid of their manager recently in terms of what they're going to do next then. Who's the new manager? Obviously, Ronald Koeman is basically through the door, apparently. That's what's been said, Mark. There's a few names on the list there. We've got Ronald Koeman, who's obviously favourite. Mauricio Pochettino's up there. Pep Guardiola, Javi Hernandez, Marcelo Bielsa. Messi said he wanted to work with Bielsa, didn't he?
He did. I think what's been said though is Bielsa generally chooses clubs; they don't choose him. But Barcelona is the biggest club in the world, probably bar Real Madrid, you'd argue. Can he turn that down? I'd love to see Guardiola go back there. I think he's got some unfinished business there. But Koeman, people will write him off, for his time at Everton. I'd argue anyone's trying to replace what Lukaku was to Everton. He was basically the whole team, and they thought they'd get Rooney back in on some fairy tale that was going to work, but obviously it didn't. I think he's a good option. Obviously, he knows the club, an icon himself there. Recently surpassed by Sergio Ramos, but he was the highest goal-scoring defender in history, I believe, in La Liga. No, he's a good option. I think, like I said before, though, it comes down to what's going on behind the scenes. I think Laporta, who was president when Guardiola there, is wanting to run again, and they've got a new bloke, Victor Font, who wants to rebuild La Masia with Xavi in charge. So it all depends what they want to do, really, from there.
It will be fairy tale with Barcelona, though, doesn't it? Don, if you have to choose a manager, mate, you're back. Can you? Firstly, can you hear us? And secondly, who do you think is going to be?
Yeah, I can hear you. Don't worry.
Bloody hell.
Yeah, I can hear you. Next Barcelona manager. Well, that's a very good question, really. To be fair, there's a lot that needs changing, isn't there? Some of the old guns probably got to go. I'd say need to bring some of the youth through. It all depends, the staff he's got around him as well. Koeman, he's done it. He's done it on the European stage before, but he wasn't brilliant at Everton, was he? So it's one of them ones. It's hard to say what the right manager they need in at the moment. They've had Pep. They've had Pep in the past. Obviously, he's the one who's most successful recently. It's a hard one, to be honest, at the moment. There's a lot that needs changing there, put it that way.
What do you think is the problem with Barcelona at the moment?
Too many egos. I'd say, you know, they bought players in the past, like, you know, Coutinho and that, who's, you know, didn't do too bad for them at all, to be fair. But it's because he's not a Neymar. You know, he was straight out on loan. You know, they feel like, because they've got a Messi, and they've always obviously had the Messi for, you know, a number of years now, they feel like every player should step up and score the amount of goals that he does. And as soon as they don't, they're out the door. They've become too much concentrated on, you know, what Messi's doing, and they need to focus as a team rather than just one individual.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment, boys. Would you agree with that? Do you think that because Messi's been delivering on that big stage for so long, that maybe their judgment's been clouded about what kind of players they need to bring into the club?
Yeah, I think so. I think, like I said earlier as well, I think they've become so reliant on Messi that whatever player they bring in, they have to be at the same standard as Messi, which is never going to happen. I mean, there's not many players you could say are at Messi's standard, especially in the Barcelona team. But from the sounds of it over the years, Messi's been quite sort of, he's been saying a lot of things, saying, I want Neymar back, you know, he's saying, I want this play. From the sounds of it, he tends to be involved in it, even though he denies it. I do think he has some sort of say of what players goes and what players come in. But like Don just said, I do think that I think he's realised that they're just too reliant on him. And I think some of the players in that team are sort of living in the past a bit, really. I think the egos have got to them, that at one point they were, you know, the best team in the world. And this tick-a-tack of football was, you know, working. It worked for Arsenal years ago, but football has moved on now. And I do think this sort of passy thing, it's not quite working. I mean, look on Friday night, Bayern Munich outpassed Barcelona. That they will just outclass them completely. You would have never thought that Barcelona would have been outpassed in that game. So yeah. I think overall, I think it is time for Messi to, you know, sort of leave his place there, and for them to sort of start the recruitment process and let some players step up. Really, you know, get rid of the egos and start working as a team again.
Yeah, completely agree. Right, so in terms of talk about clubs that have crashed out of Europe, let's have a look at our next story. Well, that's one way of putting it anyway. City and United both crashed out of Europe. I mean, it's not a very good week for Manchester, is it? The big news, obviously, Manchester City and Manchester United crash out of the European competitions to the amusement of fans across Europe. To the shock of many, the Champions League semi-finals will include 2 German and 2 French clubs. Now, are we the Farmers League boys? Are we the ones that should be playing our fields? Mark, let's start with you, mate.
I wouldn't say so. Our season's dragged on longer than everyone else's. PSG have had ample time to recover. I think they've only played a few. I think they had a cup final, didn't they, in that time? Obviously, the Bundesliga was finished fairly soon. So you look at it, you know, it's been a long old season. You look at Wolves' season when they crashed out. Wolves have been playing for over a calendar year. It's a ridiculous amount of games they've had to put up with over a course of a season. So I wouldn't say with a Farmers League. It's just very much, it's not really a true picture of a Champions League competition, is it? You know, they're all playing at a neutral stadium, no fans. You know, it all does make a difference as much as people don't like to say that it probably does as much. But it does make a difference. It's completely different. You know, like we said, going back to Barcelona, would they have capitulated like they did last year against Liverpool if the game wasn't at Anfield? Probably not. I think it's that sort of uncertainty going in there. But no, I wouldn't say with the Farmers League. I'm pretty sure we'll come back with a vengeance next year in the Champions League and Europa League. So, yeah, they can have their year of fun.
Yeah, Dom, do you agree, mate? Do you think that this year's Champions League was just a bit of a fluke, depending on where the league's finished? A lot of the teams that have been involved had to finish their season, whereas other teams, have had a nice, comfortable break, 20 days between games. Just strolling onto the pitch, fully fit. Is it a fair assessment of how it should have gone?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, like as I said, with the pandemic happening and everything like that, there was a bit of a break in it. We had to carry on the season, as he said, as Mark said. Sorry, PSG. They've only had a couple of games. It plays its toll sometimes. Players get tired. It's one of them ones really. It's a strange season as it is, let alone with the Champions League as well. But as I said, I think I agree with Mark. I think the teams will bounce back next season. Teams like City and us will be in strong contention next season for Europe, and then obviously the Europa League teams as well. I reckon they'll definitely be in the mix as well.
Yeah, we haven't said much about it, but Pep Guardiola has once again failed to get past the quarterfinals of the Champions League with Manchester City. Many pundits and fans have stated that he tends to overthink or overcomplicate things in the Champions League later stages when it comes to team selections and tactics. Dom, is he being too smart for his own good?
Well, the thing is, it's one of them ones, isn't it? Really, he's very much because he's got that mindset, and he thinks, I need this season, I need that this season. The league didn't work out for him this season, so then he's had to concentrate on Europe, and I think with what's because they haven't really got that experience at this stage of the competition to get through anyway. They haven't been, as we're saying, they've not been past the quarters. So, it's hard to say really. It's just I think with Pep he expects it, and maybe the players expect it so much when it doesn't happen, he loses. He doesn't have the answers to why it hasn't happened, kind of thing.
Yeah, completely agree. Ross has come to you on this one, mate. Manchester United missed a load of chances, which came back to bite them with here being clinical in the final. Although they did reach the top four in the Premier League, surely this season has been a failure after 3 semi-final defeats. I think we've got a picture here that capitulates everything. FA Cup EFL Cup semi-final, FA Cup semi-final, Europa League semi-final. Man United are the first club to ever lose an FA Cup final, FA Cup, League Cup, and European semi-final in the same season. I mean, it's a laughable record, really, isn't it? What do they need to do to be able to compete at a higher level next season? Is Ollie the right man for the job?
I mean, funny enough, I was on LinkedIn earlier, and some guy put up a status about this particular statistic about them getting into 3 semi-finals and getting 3rd place, and he said, I think it's been a successful season. And I said to him, how can you class that as a successful Manchester United? There's no trophies, and to be fair, we kind of expected you to get into top 4, even though you started the season so badly. Luckily enough, Leicester, performed very poor after the lockdown, and personally, from a Man United point of view, if I was a fan, I'd be clearly disappointed with how the season's gone, because they are Manchester United. I think every season you expect them to at least win 1 trophy. And to be fair to you, I think they were heavy favourites to win Europa League. I think last night they had their chances, they didn't take them, and I think that's maybe pinpointed what they need for next season. I don't think Martial's the man to sort of lead that attack. I think he's got quality, I think he's got talent, but I don't think he's consistent enough. I don't think he's got that sort of mindset where he's, going to get you 20 plus goals every season. I think he's had quite a decent season, this season, but in terms of taking Man United to that next level of competing with Liverpool and Man City, I really don't think he's the man to do it. I do think they need a right winger desperately. I think Sancho's someone that they need, but again, paying that amount of money for him, I think silly at this point in time. I don't see him paying that money. I think Greenwood has been doing a great job there, so I don't think they have to worry too much about that. From what I saw last night, Ollie doesn't seem. He seems to be a good manager, but I don't think he had that sort of tactical nous. I mean, he didn't bring any subs on until the sort of 84th minute, I think it was. And also, I looked at Rashford, and he looked shattered. He was absolutely gone. And I was thinking, surely you can see some of your players are tired. You need to bring them on, some new players, and he just didn't. He just left it so late. And I've got a few friends who are Man United fans, and they were fuming. They were going, Ollie's clueless. What is he doing? We can clearly see that this is not working. Why is he not changing anything? And that's what's frustrating Man United fans. I think Ollie Solskjaer has done a good job in terms of transfers, and I think they've made progress. But personally, I can't see how he's going to take them to the next level unless he changes his ways in terms of how he does his tactics with the team, really.
Yeah, completely agree. Looking towards the Champions League semis, then Mark, surely Bayern München are the favourites now. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, they've probably been. They've had a weird year though. They obviously sacked their manager. Kovac was in charge, and Hansi Flick sort of just took over the reins, and he's done an exceptional job there, breaking the records that Pep Guardiola set with Bayern Munich, which is no mean feat, really. PSG potentially, I think this is their best opportunity to do it if they're ever going to do it, but I can't see it. I would say it's probably Bayern Munich to lose, really.
Yeah, completely agree, mate. Right then, boys, let's move on to the next segment of the show.
Listen up, lads. Are you madly searching for the next best podcast? Join Ash, Armchair, Tux and Bex for the FNZ 90+3 podcast as they speak to former professionals about their careers in football. Available to watch on YouTube or listen to on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Join the lads every Sunday from 8 p.m.
Fancy yourself as a bit of a Premier League guru? Why don't you put your managerial skills to the test and join our FNZ Fantasy Premier League ahead of the new season? Download the Fantasy Premier League app and use the code on screen. Good luck, you're going to need it.
I don't know where to press rewind there. I wanted to go to the watch. Right then, boys, there's been a lot of transfer talk over the last week, and I want to pick up on some big headlines. This one certainly didn't go under the radar. Sarr from Watford for £40 million. I mean, are they having a laugh? Let's start with you, Dom.
I mean, Watford have just been relegated. Let's be honest. Players' values. Relegation club. 40 million is quite over the mark, to be fair. I mean, I already touched down on to a few people when Man City signed Ake for 41 million. Same sort of situation. Bournemouth being relegated. Big clubs coming in for them kind of players. It's silly money, isn't it? Let's be honest. It's crazy. I mean, even pushing 25 million is a bit of a stretch to me as well. I just think clubs are too greedy these days. I mean, I know, they want to keep the players, but let's be honest, like the players not going to want to stay if they're in the Championship anyway. So, put a proper value on them, let the club, talk to them, and then see where it goes from there. Really.
Yeah, I mean, Mark, let's just look at 5 goals and 4 assists in 28 games last season. I mean, if you had him in your fantasy Premier League team, he wouldn't have done anything for you, would he?
No, he had that one good week against Liverpool, but that's about it. But no, it's just the way the market is, though, isn't it? A lot of it is covering their back on the deal that's been agreed. I imagine, I don't know what contract he's on, but they obviously never really. I don't think they probably factored in relegation as a possibility this year after sort of establishing themselves. So he's probably on a fair whack. That 40 million is probably covering his contract. But no, it's just the way the market goes. I think it's not the first time we've seen big money transfers out of the Championship. I think when Newcastle went down, Sissoko went to Spurs for 30 odd million, wasn't it? I don't know how much you guys bought Wijnaldum off Newcastle as well. that was sort of a fairly big fee. Obviously, 40 million is the sort of taking it to the next level. But like we were saying earlier, that's the way football is going to go. It's just only going to get bigger and bigger. Won't be long before we see the first £200 million player, I don't imagine.
No, completely agree. I mean, Ross, if we look at it, Liverpool been heavily linked to Sarr. Are we saying that they're linked to him because he had one good appearance last season, or is it because he's a consistent performer?
No, I think it's it's raw talent, to be fair, and I think he's got a very close relationship with Sadio Mane. So I think Mane's been speaking with Klopp, and he's sort of even before that game that he highly rates him, and he's played with him for the Senegal team, and like I said, he's so young and raw. And to be fair, when we signed Mane from Southampton, people were laughing, saying that he can't finish and he's just pace. And look what Klopp did with him. Klopp made him into a deadly finisher, and he got us some ridiculously important goals this season to win us the league. So I think it's pinpointing that sort of talent where, his season for Watford was pretty average. He wasn't sort of there wasn't any fireworks with it, but going back to the sort of value of it, I don't see where Watford have got this 40 million, amount from. I think it's quite crazy, especially with what Dom said. They're a relegated team. He's not going to want to stay anyway, and he's going to force that move whether they like it or not. So if we didn't pay, was it 50 million for Werner? I don't see us, paying 40 million for Sarr. But you never know what will happen, really. It's still early in the transfer window. I personally think it'd be a great little winger to bring in. I think it's something that Klopp can work with. But at the same time, I don't want to be mugged off and pay that kind of money.
No, completely agree. If we're looking at another players demanding a lot of money, let's look at Grealish. Villa are set for crunch talks with Grealish this week. Villa are demanding a hefty fee of £80 million for the tricky playmaker. He's set for these crunch talks this week. Obviously, he's over the contract. Player who probably looked like he was on the way out of the door if Aston Villa were relegated this season. Similar to the Sancho transfer saga, is Grealish really worth £80 million? Have Aston Villa been so poor last season that they've made him look better than he is? Mark, let's start with you on that one, mate. What do you think of Grealish?
I think he's a good player. I think the numbers, if you want to get into stats, I think he's up there with. I think he was second behind De Bruyne on chances created. It's a shame Villa haven't really got anyone that can put him in the back of the net. One of the most fouled players in the league. Similar levels to when Hazard was in a division. I think it's just his attitude and some of the mistakes he's made in the past, which people think, why is he worth that amount of money? But I think he's a very talented lad. It's not his fault that he's valued at 80 million by the club. It's the same with any player. It's who's brave enough or foolish enough to pay that much for him, however you see it.
Do we think that Jack Grealish should be, in the position to maybe get an England call up now, get a start for England?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't see why not. Mason Mount seems to be Gareth Southgate's kind of go-to because he worked with him in the youth ranks, but Grealish was better than him last year. Maddison has been injured for a little while. He's, again, I'd probably say they're probably on even par at them two. Maybe Maddison's a little bit the goal numbers going to be a bit better for Maddison, but I don't see why not. We've got quite a depth of talent in midfield, and Grealish is well within the mix of that. I think he's overdue a call off if I'm honest.
Yeah, completely agree. Dom, if Man United were to sign him, where would he play? I mean, if you look at the likes of Bruno Fernandes making a huge impact since signing in January, scoring however many penalties it was, setting up however many goals. I mean, Paul Pogba's come back into the squad. Is he likely to stay? And would Grealish make an impact if he was to join United?
Well, that's it. It all really depends on, with Pogba staying, whether he wants to play. You can't really play all three of them together. They're two attacking players, aren't they? Really, to be fair, it wouldn't work at all. So, also, the other argument is, they're pushing for this winger. They want Sancho. That's 120 million I don't see it happening now. But if not, there'll be another player they're going for, probably again big money. Where do they get the money for both of these players? You know what I mean? That's what, especially with the amount of money they've spent in the past. It's going to be, I don't know. We'll have to see what happens. Really, they know what they want. As their first, as their first thing. That's the right winger. So whether we know what happens with that first, and then if they do get that, then they have to find out whether they need a Grealish or someone like that. Because he's not going to start. 80 million is too much money for someone who's not going to start if Pogba stays, obviously.
Yeah, it's probably a task that Grealish needs to maybe think about, understand a bit better. Ross, I'll come to you on this one. Does Grealish need to really think about his next move? His ambitions in his career. Where can he go to better his career? Now, I'm not arguing. Look, Villa with the right signings could stay up. They could be a Premier League side next season. They need to do a lot more in terms of bringing in players, which I've seen. To be fair to them, they've done. They've sacked their head of recruitment. They've brought somebody else in. They're looking to bring in more sustainable signings. They spent over 100 million last summer. He can lead those players for his boyhood club, but he needs support, doesn't he? He needs those players to further his career. If he was to stay at Villa, do you think it would be such a bad thing?
I think at this moment in time, with what's going on, I can't see anyone coming in with that amount of money to buy him. I highly rate Grealish from what I've seen him do. I think he's fantastic on the ball. And going back to what Mark said with England, I think at the last tournament that we did, we were crying out for a player like Grealish, Mount, Maddison, and now we've got three of them. But the funny thing is, though, Grealish hasn't really been looked at because he plays for Aston Villa, where Mount plays for Chelsea, top 4 team, and Maddison plays for Leicester, who are, a top 5, top 6 team. So Grealish has to look at that thinking, wait a minute, I'm betting these two, but they're getting them before me purely down to the fact that they're playing for a better club than me. So he's got to look at it and go, right, do I really stay and take that risk and maybe not play at the Euros next year if Aston Villa don't recruit very well? Or does he, move on somewhere where he potentially may not be starting for that team, like Man United? And again, that may mean he misses out on Euros again. So I think it's a really important point of his career now where he's got to really think this through. I think at this moment in time, it'll probably be better for him to stay with Villa for one more season, waiting to think get back to normal a little bit, because he'll certainly be starting for him. And if he can sort of improve on the previous season, and if Villa can get some better players in to sort of work with him to get more goals, I think he's got to be in the England squads. I really do. From what I've seen, I think he's up there with Mount. I think he's probably better than Maddison from what I've seen them both play. He just needs the players around him, where Mounts and Maddison do have that better quality around them in their teams, and that's what Southgate's looking at, really. So yeah, I'm interested to see what will happen this summer. But going back to what Dom said, I don't think 80 million is going to be achievable for any club, even Man United.
Yeah, I can completely agree. Now, if we're looking at the England squad and we look at a player who's delivered on the big stage for England, maybe not so much in the Premier League, it's John Stones. Now, what's the latest on him? He's been linked, with the centre-back sign of Nathan Ake at Man City. It's probably likely that he's going to be on his way out of Man City. He's had a number of chances to prove his worth in the City side, and he's made mistakes at times. But other times he said he's rescued him. I can remember goal line clearances from Stones in the past. But Chelsea have been heavily linked with John Stones. But would he improve Chelsea's defence, or would he make it worse? To start with you, Dom.
Well, at the moment, Chelsea need a big game player centre back, around that defence, and to be consistent as well. Their defence hasn't been great at all this season, has it? Let's be honest. If they'd had more consistency in their defence and they didn't make the mistakes they made, they could have been topping. They could have been pushing for the top three again, couldn't they? Unfortunately, they didn't, and then they slipped up, finished 4th, slipped up in the FA Cup for mistakes. So Stones, again, as you pointed out, he has had some really good performances. He has made some key clearances and things like that. But in terms of consistency, he's a bit all over the place, isn't he? Let's be honest. And it's not going to be cheap for them either. I mean, Man City paid 50 million for him originally. So how much they're going to want for him, especially from a team like Chelsea, with that kind of money to be able to spend it. So I'm not too sure at the moment. I personally, if it was me, I wouldn't sign Stones. I just don't think he's got that consistency yet. I'd personally wait maybe a season or two, see if he does go to someone else, see what he's like there. If he doesn't work out for him there, then maybe move him from there, basically.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to look at it. Mark, was Stones given a fair crack at Man City? Did his injuries hold him back, or was it just simply he wasn't good enough?
I think he's obviously had a lot of injuries in his time at City, but I don't know. I thought he'd be one of them players. Pep's were pretty good. You look at the impact he's had on Raheem Sterling, bar the other night when he missed an absolute sitter. He's absolutely transformed what Sterling was when City signed him, as well as the player he was at Liverpool, to arguably England's best player. I thought Stones maybe would have that same impact, but I don't know. I like John Stones. I think he's a fairly capable defender, not by any means world class, but for a top six club, he's someone. I'd probably say he'd make any squad in the top six. I'm sure the two boys will say they'd probably have him as a backup at Liverpool, no doubt, despite his past. But Chelsea, I don't think they really need to look for a centre back. They should trust in what they've got. I think they've been linked with Lewis Dunk for 40 million, which is ludicrous. They've got 4 young centre backs there. They've got Tomori, Zuma, Christensen, and Rudiger. They're set there. Their bigger problems are at the goalkeeping position, where you've got 40-year-old Willy Caballero there and Kepa, who is seemingly out the door, but they're never going to make the money back they got on him. So I think they're fairly set at centre back, to be honest.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that, Mark, to be honest. I don't think Chelsea really needs another centre-back. So that brings me on to my next question, really, is why or where is John Stones going to go? That's my question. Ross, John Stones doesn't really seem to fit into the future of the English centre-back pairing for England. It doesn't really seem to fit into Man City. He's not going to join a top 4 club. Where is he going next?
I mean, John Stones, he's only 26 years old, you have to remember. So he's still got plenty of time to turn his career around. To be fair, when he went to Man City, everyone was raving about how he's going to become the next big thing. The sort of best English defender. He's going to be one of the best in the league. Pep's going to turn him into a world-class centre-back. And it just hasn't worked out for him. Maybe it's down to belief, confidence, a few bad injuries. Obviously, it's the mistakes. I think he relies too heavily on his passing and doesn't sort of think more about the actual defending side of things enough. I think it's his positioning of the game, where if you compare it to Van Dijk, I mean, that guy barely breaks a sweat when he's playing. He's barely sort of heavily breathing after a game because his positioning of the game is so good. He reads the game so well. Where with Stones, he seems a bit like a headless chicken sometimes. And I thought under Pep, that would be something that would be sorted out, which it just hasn't. And yes, he may have the potential to be something big, but if he hasn't got the right manager to sort of manage that, then what are you going to do? I mean, if Pep can't do it, who can? So personally, I think, like you said, if he was going to the top 4 club, he wouldn't be a starting position for him. I think maybe he needs to go down a perch, maybe go back to Everton. I think Everton was always his kind of standard, or maybe a team like West Ham, just somewhere where he can get a starting position and get a manager that's going to put that belief back into him, really, to say, look, you are good enough to play for England, but you need to clear up these mistakes and you need to improve on this side of your game, because when it comes to your ball retention, and your passing, it's fantastic, but if you can't defend, you know, as a centre back, you're not going to get anywhere. So if he's going to move, I can't. I don't. It doesn't make any sense to go to Chelsea. To be fair, I don't think that's what Chelsea need. I think he needs to go somewhere where he's got the right manager and he's going to be paired with someone where he can obviously get that belief back in his game.
Yeah, completely agree. So, boys, it's been a long hour tonight, but we've come to the end of the show. It's been really good to have you on. Obviously, Dom and Ross, debuts for you today. So, you know, take it and learn from it. Dom, make sure you get a better internet connection.
Yeah, I will do next time.
You got back in the
yeah, we all did.
Thanks for joining us, mate, as well. And Bex, as always, mate, doing well there, mate. Thanks for your opinion.
I haven't been able to see you the whole time. I've just
really.
No, I can't actually see. My live counter is on 1 minute and 12 minutes, so I hope I haven't been picking my nose too much throughout this.
Mate, you've
done better than me, and I can hear. Like, I got kicked out. I could see everyone and hear everyone. So,
if you've been watching tonight, people at home, the comments have been absolutely brilliant tonight. Some have been absolutely brilliant. I'm looking at them now. Someone's commenting on haircuts. I mean, one of them's just saying, look, the lineup tonight's absolutely horrendous. I don't think that. So if you've got any problems, just send us an email, mate. It's 0121do1@hotmail.com. There's, you know, if you're joining us for the first time tonight, we do this weekly. It's a Monday night show. If you want to give our page a like, if you're watching on Facebook, give it a like, give it a follow. Twitter, follow us on Twitter, and obviously on YouTube, subscribe. But until next week, everyone, take care.